Shadilay and Kalisti, my dear sisters and brothers. I'm the Political Ferret, and today we're gonna take it easy and continue our Kekistan series. Take everything you hear with a grain of salt, you know why, you have been advised. So as a reminder, the great Kekistani Empire fell around more or less the same time all culture in this region fell, and this was about 1280 BC. Some parts of Kekistan lasted longer, but it is more or less safe to assume that the final and younger empire wasn't the original one, but a reborn version, such as the Neo-Assyrians at the time. We know for a fact that there were quite some migration process involved, and we know that a lot of Kekistani went to Greece and of course influenced their culture. One thing that seems to be quite overseen is the enormous similarity between the old ancient Kek, the long-forgotten god of chaos, and Eris, the not-so-forgotten goddess of chaos in ancient Greek, and Discordia, her Roman counterpart. Both Kek and Eris never did all too well with accumulating followers for several reasons, mostly because people thought that she would just confuse them all day long and won't bring them a prosperous life, but chaos and discord, and they would have been right. Nevertheless, thanks to Meloclips the Younger and Khaman Ravenheart, we got a glimpse of her small but shiny glory. The Principia Discordia, modern version of the ancient text, re-emerged. Of course, most scientists would argue that this is just a joke done by two clowns, and the cult of Eris never existed in the first place. But we, of course, know better. The height of the Greek culture was around 500 BC, so it's quite likely that the influence began when the ancient Greece was not more than some farms on some hills. Especially the 5 commandments are remarkable, because if you take a look to points 3 and 4, this is more or less exactly the traditional Kekistani initial rite. Although, of course, the myth behind it is different. This has cultural backgrounds. While Kek was the victim essentially of his own joke when Horus kicked his butt, you all know of course the story when Eris was just not permitted to enter the big celestial party on Olymp. She was, of course, pissed off and had a plan how to blow the party, and this was by rolling a golden apple into the party. The apple had words on it, Kalisti, for the most beautiful. Well, it didn't take long till 3 of the goddesses started to fight. It means Hera, Athena and Aphrodite fought over the apple, and of course nobody wanted to decide who is the most beautiful. All the gods did know this, taking any chances for that's just a bad idea. So they picked a mortal, Paris of Troy, and asked him. And of course all 3 goddesses tried to bribe him, Athena with victories in war, Hera with money and wealth, and Aphrodite promised him the most beautiful wife. Well, he's a guy after all, so he took the wife. And this was Helena of Sparta, and ta-da! The Trojan War begins. The story of Kek and Osiris is similar, but the reference to the war is long forgotten. Also, the story of the Enlightened is remarkably similar to teaching of the classical Kekistani. A man sought enlightenment, but no master could bring him to that. One day he met the master, and he told him that he should go in the cellar of an old warehouse. Sitting there and enlightenment would come. And he did it, and he was quite confused, because there were a lot of bums and junkies around. But he sat on a pile of dirt and meditated, and the days went by. One day some bums came around, and one asked him, "Hey, what's that guy?" And the other said, "Well, nobody knows. Most of us think he's just another shithead, but some say he's a holy man." In this moment, he was enlightened. The modern shitposters are following a similar path to enlightenment, isn't it? So, is there a connection between the Kekistani people and the cult of Discordia? I would say yes, clearly. Especially regarding religion and the very specific idea how to get to enlightenment. The most defining difference is that the Discordians never tried to be accepted. Hagbard Selein pointed this out quite clearly. Forming a Discordian society is utterly impossible. But the Kekistani, on the other hand, are not focused on the religious part, but on the uniting aspect of culture. And this culture is to speak against everything, not only but especially against your own beliefs. Going from that, you could argue that this means that the Kekistani or Discordians, or both, are the base of rational critical thinking and therefore the foundation of the West. Or you could argue that in a culture such as the West, where you can critical think, this school of thinking has at least a chance to prosper. The West is the only place where such ideas could be born and reborn again. It's the same idea all over again. If you're Kekistani, get yourself a copy of the Principia Discordia. It's free. There's a link in the description. I guess you're gonna like it. So, Callisti and Chalalet, brothers and sisters, may our discord improve us.